Join us, Alix and Colleen, self-proclaimed fake it till you make it experts, as we navigate the highs and lows of being a woman and how the pressure and overwhelm of trying to do it all often leads to feeling like an imposter in our own lives. Joining us on the show today is Indigenous writer, musician, and filmmaker Stephanie Joline, who chats with us about navigating new creative endeavors, overcoming imposter syndrome, and the importance of showing up as yourself.
Alix,
We're live.
we are live and it's been a couple of weeks.
We're basically famous now.
That was kind of freaky, eh?
It was weird. It was definitely weird.
Yeah.
Continues to be weird, but in a great way.
But in a very fun way. And I'm still happy I'm doing this project with you. I know it's been a lot of work for you for the last couple of weeks as you're getting it going.
Well, for both of us. Yes.
I thank you.
Well, I'm still enjoying.
You're still here. She's still here. She's still playing with me.
Very excited because today's guest is someone that I know.
Woohoo!
We have Stephanie Joline here today, and I am super excited. We are sort of related.
Is this the first nepo-baby episode?
Yes.
It's like nepo stepsister.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Big nepotism in our family. So my mom and Steph's dad have been together for, is it 15 years
Something
now?
like that, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, our parents are pretty much married. They're not
Yes.
married,
Yes.
but they're pretty, they're
Yes.
common law.
fake
I think
marriage.
neither of them believe in marriage or
That's
something.
true.
So
They
they're not
are-
actually married.
They are cohabitating.
I'm not speaking for them. I assume you're going to have them on the show because of the nepotism.
Yes.
So you can ask them when
Obviously.
they're on the show.
That's the thing. I only interview people that are like,
Yeah.
there you go. Works. So we're very excited. Steph is way more Holly famous than we are. She is done so many amazing projects locally, but also nationally, internationally. Anyway, we'll let her get into that. But I just want to start by saying what I think about when it comes to Steph. I think she is one of the coolest people that I've ever met. She's so talented and creative and does so many cool things and seems to be scared of nothing. Will try anything
Oh,
and is so adventurous and fun and just comfortable around anyone. I think one of my favorite things about Steph is how amazing she is with my son, Terry.
Aww.
And the special bond that they have together is like one of my favorite things of all time.
Aww.
But she does so many cool projects, and I've actually seen her on set because Carrie was able to be in one of the movies that she directed, and to see her work, it's just so interesting and amazing. And yeah, I just think she's one of the coolest people I've ever met. So that's how I see you. How would you describe you?
Well, I'm assuming there's a common theme in this podcast where you guys say something nice about the guest,
Mhm.
and then they're like, "Oh, that felt so uncomfortable."
Yes.
Well, for
Sometimes.
me, I'm like, "This is awesome." I love it when people say nice things about me. So I felt like I would take like the energy of like a recovering imposter, because I used to suffer from imposter syndrome like majorly, and now I'm like, I kind of gotten over it.
Oh my goodness, I cannot.
I mean, I still experience it a
Oh.
little bit now and then, but like most of the time I don't experience imposter syndrome anymore, and it's way awesome.
Well, I do like on your website that it says, if you want to look at some of my work, click here. If you want to send me nice things and compliments, click
Or
here. I thought,
Yeah,
criticism, but
if you
yeah.
want to send compliments, praise, or criticism, click here. Alex designed that website.
I
See all
think
the
it's sweet.
all the in
It's-
between.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I also like kind of don't take myself very seriously. Like sometimes I think when you log on to like the landing page of my website, it says like, "Thanks for visiting my website because I love attention of any kind."
Yes.
And that's what I mean is like, you want to compliment me? Do you want to like throw popcorn at the screen when you see my movie? Like, whatever, I'm good as long as you're talking about me. Sort of like, it's a bit of a shtick because I'm not like that full of myself, but it's kind of close. It's like an exaggerated version of how I actually feel, I think. Because I do like attention.
Well, I
but
feel
then
like-
people, I'm not really craving to be the center of attention all the time.
And I feel like your Instagram personality is very much that as well,
Yeah.
which is a lot of fun to follow.
Yeah, there was a little while where maybe like a year or something, and I was single and I was dating and I was just having a lot of fun. I mean, I'm still single and dating, but at the time I was having a lot of fun with being really self-deprecating and like talking about dating and how I can't find anybody. And it was just like a fun thing I was doing for a little while. But a lot of people would meet me and be very surprised that I wasn't like that. And I'm like, no, that's just a stupid thing I'm doing on Instagram. And they're like, oh. And then it felt like I was disappointing them. They're like, oh, you're just like normal and not that full of yourself. That's boring.
I like that though.
But I didn't even answer your question. How would I describe myself? I liked what you were saying about how being like the things that you were saying are very kind, Alix. So thank you. And I think it feels good because that's all stuff that I like. I really hope that I'm being creative is a big part of my self-esteem. My self-worth is based on my creative life. And I'm also like, I'm scared of stuff, but I really try to push myself to areas that like, if I'm scared of this, the way I see it is like, if I'm scared of something, that's if the only reason I'm saying no to a thing is out of fear, then I have to say yes. And so I
love
try
that.
to push myself. So if I'm scared and I think it's a bad idea for other reasons, I won't do it. But if I'm like I should do it for all these reasons, but I'm really scared, so I don't want to, then I'm like, fuck, no, I have to. I have to do it. Just because I think that it's natural to be scared. But if you push yourself to do things that are scary, you will push yourself out of your comfort zone and grow. And I just like, where else can you grow other than uncomfortable places?
I think so too. I think you have to be uncomfortable in order to grow. I think you have to push yourself through that. And it's nice the way you phrased it. I like the way you're saying it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think we should all try to live like that.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, there's a lot of reasons for people to be afraid of things. Like fear of failure is probably the biggest thing, right?
Yes.
Like, did you guys, when you wanted
100%.
to start this podcast,
Oh.
was there times where you're like, okay, that was a fun idea, but let's actually
Yeah,
not
we're
do
still
it.
kind of there.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say
Yeah.
vibes are still among us.
Yeah.
In fact, earlier today when I was editing, those times were very
You're like, is it too late to just delete the one episode we uploaded and then just pretend that we
Right.
never tried this?
Do this. Don't know what you're doing. Podcast. Don't know what you're talking about. We never did that.
wasn't us.
Wasn't it? Yeah, but you got to do it.
So
Yeah.
did you always know that you wanted to be in film and TV? Like, how did that start? And
Okay, so yeah, so I make my living, I do a few different things, but I make my living pretty much as a filmmaker now. So I do other things like I'm a technician at CBC TV and radio. I also do some public speaking stuff. Sometimes I teach film classes. And so I have a mixture of different, I guess, like income or like gigs that I do. But yeah, the main thing I do now is filmmaking. I'll tell you the quick condensed version of how I got here. So when I was a teenager, the only thing I wanted to do ever was be a rock star. That was my only plan for life. The problem was I didn't have any talent. I didn't play music. I didn't know how to play an instrument. I couldn't sing. So I just had like, it'll probably work out though, right?
yes.
I had the attitude, quote unquote, the attitude of a rock star. I figured that was enough. So I really didn't have a plan. Like I literally did not think, what am I going to do after high school? Or what am I going to, should I go to school? Should I go to university or college? Or I just didn't think about it. And then I found myself like I dropped out of high school, got my GED. I was living in the valley with the Annapolis Valley with a guy I was dating. And I just was working at Tim Hortons because there was a Tim Hortons nearby and I needed to pay rent. And then I really hated the job. And I was like, well, I guess I should come up with a plan because I don't really want to work at Tim Hortons for the rest of my life. And there was a school, like a community college there at the time was in Kentville, offered, it's the King's Tech campus. It's still there, but they no longer offer like screen arts and radio and TV, but at the time they offered a radio and television program. And in my mind, radio was sort of close to working in music. That was my whole plan. I was like, kind of, I could be working at a radio station and maybe I could start a band and then maybe my band could get played on the radio because I worked there. That was my really smart
You were
plan.
looking to be discovered.
Yeah, but like really had no idea how to be discovered.
Yeah.
Also, I yet did not know how to play an instrument. So I did not figure that part out yet. So I was like, yeah, I'll just figure it out and play in a band and then get that band played on the radio and probably then become a rock star. And
Seems logical to me.
Yeah. So then I knew I didn't want to work at Tim Hortons. So and I had my GED, which, so I could apply to community college. So I did, got into the program. It was 2 years. And I really liked the radio part, but I actually really, really loved the TV side of it. So they teach you how to use cameras and do video editing. Now everybody can do video editing, but at the time, which I'm dating myself a little bit, this was before smartphones and before like everybody had that skill. So so I learned how to use cameras and do editing, and I just kind of had a knack for the visual storytelling. It just came kind of easy to me, and I didn't realize I was sort of better at it than ever, like a lot of other people in the class, and naturally. And I didn't remember ever being naturally good at something. So it really boosted my confidence to be like, my teacher being like, you're really good at editing video together and telling a story. And I'm like, I am. So like for someone feeling very talking about imposter syndrome, up until that point, I just didn't think I was good at anything. I was like, I'm probably the most like painfully average person in the world. And then when someone's like, oh, you're good at this, I'm like, oh, this is what self-esteem feels like, being good at something. This is awesome. Wow. So I just like dove into it, and from there got an internship at CBC, and then started working in the camera department, and from there making music videos, short films, and now I currently direct TV and films, and yeah, all that. So that was my, not that condensed, but kind of the quick version of how I got here.
Fascinating way to discover who you are and what you're good at. And I think that so often kids are coming out of high school and they're like, oh, well, I'm going to have to do business. I'm going to have to do that. I'll go to university and do this. Or I'll try, because they just don't know what to do. And they're, and the creative arts often aren't pursued by a lot of kids,
Yeah. I mean, especially if you don't come from a family, like I didn't come from a creative family. Like no one in my family was an artist. The idea of becoming a artist as a profession or working in the film industry, it just seems so beyond, it just wasn't possible. So it wasn't even something I dreamed of. But now I look back and I'm like, oh, there's like NSCC, a different campus offered music business. Like I would have loved to take that. I just didn't know about it. Or screen arts, where they teach you actually filmmaking and all that stuff. I didn't take that. I just didn't know about it. So I love that. Anytime I talk to like young people or teenagers, like I kind of just want them to like know, like there are things.
Yeah.
Because especially growing up in a small town, growing up in Yarmouth, I mean, I knew you could be a teacher or a doctor or a carpenter, or there was probably 5 things that I knew about that you could be.
Yep. Anything service profession, or a fisherman.
And then after that you go, oh, I didn't even know people worked in movies. I didn't know how movies were made. That seemed insane to me, to think that that was a job. But
yeah, that's crazy.
There.
I love that you got there. And now look.
now on this podcast with you guys.
That is the true definition of fame.
Now you've made it.
Exactly.
Wow, you are award-winning. Serving up hot brews, refreshing cold drinks, lots of fresh baked goodies, and delicious lunch options. Visit the Mellow Mug in the heart of Larry Utech for dine-in, takeout, or drive-through service. Their spacious cafe offers a casual and inviting vibe that's perfect for everything from enjoying a good book, hanging with friends, or meeting a colleague. The Mellow Mug is your neighborhood spot for great coffee and delicious eats and sweets. Yeah.
Awards. Talking about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Awards are a weird thing to deal with. I'm throwing you a question, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. You can ask whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you what to ask me next.
I was going
Speaking
to get
of awards, maybe like a question.
Jumped ahead.
I was going to get to that, but let's talk a little bit about it, because I do want to know sort of the different stages during your career where imposter syndrome maybe was more prevalent. And you've already said that you've kind of majorly mastered that. So I'm really curious to know sort of your journey with imposter syndrome, and most importantly, how you've overcome it, because that's something that everyone is sort of still striving for.
I know. So remember how I was saying I really wanted to be a rock star and had no talent? I did end up figuring out how to play an instrument. So when I moved to Halifax, I was working at CBC. I learned how to play the drums.
The drums.
And then I joined a band, and we were a little indie band and didn't, make a lot of money or have huge success, but we like toured a little bit and played clubs.
They're great,
and,
super
and
fantastic. We'll link them in the show notes.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
the super fantastic. It's like the opposite of humble. It's just like, no, we're super and fantastic.
I love
No imposter syndrome here, but secretly there was imposter syndrome. So that's an example. That was where I remember feeling the most imposter syndrome, because I wasn't technically trained. Like, my friend taught me how to play drums, my friend who I was in the band with. So we would write songs. He would write songs, bring them in, kind of teach me how to do a simple drum beat. And then from there, we ended up having so many songs that we're like, I guess we're a band now, and we toured, and that's how the band grew. But I didn't really know how to play drums. Like, technically, I didn't know how to read music. I didn't really know what different timing was. And I had this fear that every time I would either go to a show to do sound check, to load my gear in, to set up and meet the other band members that I'm playing with that night, that other bands on the bill, I always had this fear that I hope nobody asks me about my drums, because I was so worried. Especially the other drummers in the bands would come up, and there were usually dudes too, and then the guys would come up, and I was so worried. They'd be like, so what kind of kit are you playing? Because I'm like, okay, like, I know I'm playing Ludwig's. Like, I knew that was the name of the drums. Hope they don't ask me anything else, because I was so worried. They'd be like, so why are you going with the 15-inch hi-hats or whatever? And I would be like, okay, you got me. I don't know anything about drums. I'm faking this whole thing. You guys are real musicians. I'm not. Like, I was just waiting for that moment. And so it would be like, I'd load in the gear and I'd be like, oh shit, everyone still believes that I'm a drummer? Okay. Play the show, do the tours, record the albums, sell the albums. Through every stage, I was like, oh God, one of these days, just waiting for that moment for them to realize I'm not a real drummer. And then I looked back on that. I think it was probably after the band had ended that I was looking back thinking, but I am actually playing the drums in a band.
Exactly.
I'm actually doing the thing. So, like, if you can't get over the imposter syndrome when you're doing the thing, it's not like I was in my basement playing drums going, oh, I'm not really a drummer. I'm not in a band. I was in the band.
Yes.
I was doing more of the actual musician stuff than so many other people who play drums in their basement and never played a show. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
exactly.
it was kind of, that kind of perspective hit me once. And I was like, yeah, but I really did do it though. I really did do the thing.
It's so true. So often we've got this idea of faking it till you fake it till you make it, but you're not faking it.
If you're actually
doing it, right? So it's, whoa, wait a minute, I'm making it. I'm doing the thing.
It comes back to that theme where everything needs to be done a certain way every time for it to be success. And I think that's the biggest myth about imposter syndrome and about most things, is that you can get the same result millions of different ways, and that doesn't mean that one way is the official way to do it. But I think that is where a lot of imposter syndrome comes in. If I'm not doing it exactly the way that everyone else has done it, or that I have perceived it should be done, then it's a complete failure. But and I think that comes into, you identified that you are the expert category.
Yeah, I was
when it
reading the
comes to
different descriptions.
Are you the expert? We are as well.
Yes, it's a trio of experts.
So the expert is the knowledge version of the perfectionist. For the expert, the primary concern is on what and how much you know or can do. Because you expect to know everything, even a minor lack of knowledge denotes failure and shame.
Yeah, I feel like when I was reading the descriptions between the different imposters, that's probably the one I was leaning towards the most, but there was a little bit of different ones in there for sure, like you guys were both saying. Well, when I think back to the drumming thing, like that's, and I still downplay myself now. If it comes up in conversation and someone says, oh, you're a drummer, I go, well, I know how to play rock drum.
Right.
Like, that's a pretty standard, like, rock beat. I can't do jazz drumming. I can't do I can't do really technical drumming. It's like I'm downplaying. Before you figure it out, let me just tell you, I'm not that good. So when you do figure that out, it's not like gotcha stuff. It's like, I already told you.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like a
Let me,
self
let me get ahead of you. Let me,
yeah.
self-preservation.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
That's how I feel a lot about graphic design, because I'm self-taught as a designer. So a lot of times I will always say, well, yeah, I can do some design, but that's not really my focus.
Right.
And
yeah.
I'm the same with writing. People are like, oh, you're such a great writer. And I'm like, no, I'm a blogger. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a writer. I'm a blogger. So we're constantly, I think creative people often do that. Like you're downplaying or you're knocking back what you do. And that's not fair. That's not being fair to
I have a theory about
why.
I think we here, so Canadians are known to be like humble to the point of self-deprecating. We cannot brag. If anyone catches us bragging, worst thing a Canadian can do, right? So in Canada, we're humble. In the east coast of Canada, I think is the most known as like the nicest, most like humble version of Canadians. And here we are women in the east coast of Canada. So like we are so on the side of that spectrum of like, we would never ever want someone to think we were bragging about ourselves. Therefore, okay, actually I'm not that good. Actually, I'm kind of shitty. Actually, I'm just gonna leave. Like you're just like we can't get enough of our like, no, I'm not that great.
But if
So
we
that's my
don't
theory.
promote ourselves, who's going
I
to?
know.
Like, you know what I mean? Like if you want to start a project, if you want to do like you're doing all this filming, you have to be out front of it. You have to push yourself and push what you're doing. Who else is doing it?
It helps when you have a manager.
Right. We need
You have
managers.
somebody else to like speak on your behalf and you're like, see, I didn't brag about myself. I didn't write this bio. Someone else wrote this bio. I didn't say I'm amazing and I won all these awards. Like it feels weird. You feel like you have to hand it to someone else to say it for
hardest
you.
things to write. Bios.
Yeah.
I always write bios for people
Do
because
you?
they don't like to write them
You might need
themselves.
to write my bio. It's crappy. You can't write your bio.
No, I didn't write my own bio.
I wrote my own.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic.
You're like, Alix is
Apparently,
not
I'm
really
fine with it.
Alix is not really a designer, but you could get a hold of her unless you find someone better. This is a really self-deprecating bio.
It's not actually. So I don't know what that says about me.
No, it sounds fantastic.
That's great.
Not very
Yeah.
East Canadian of me. Anyway. One level on top of that too is if you're also in a creative industry in the East Coast as a woman, forget it.
Oh,
Forget
just a
it.
mess.
You have said now that largely you don't really feel like an imposter anymore. So what helped you get to that point?
Okay, so this might be a weird perspective on it, but I mean, part of that was what I just said about how I looked back at my drumming, my career in music. Saying that's even weird. My career in music. I get paid like $20 once. That's a career, right?
100%.
No, I look back at and part of it was that I looked back and I was like, oh, I did the thing. I did the thing that I was always saying, I'm not really a drummer, but I actually was. So there you go. But I do remember when I started working in the film industry, feeling that again. So starting to direct. I remember the moment when we sent in our tape. It was on beta tape to Much Music, our music video for my band, Super Fantastics. And I sent it in and we had to fill out the paperwork. And in one of the sections was like, who's the director of the video? And I was telling my bandmate, oh, I don't know what to put here. Like, we don't have a director. And he's like, well, you shot it and edited it. You know, yeah, it's your name. You put the director. And I was like, oh, no, but I'm not a director. Like, that was, again, you know, typical, I guess, imposter syndrome. But then I ended up, okay, I guess I'm the director. It seems strange. But then I continued to make music videos and short films. But my first short film with dialogue, like with actors, with a crew, it was major imposter syndrome because I was like, oh no, like everybody on set's gonna know I don't know what I'm doing. And every time I say something or give a direction, everyone's gonna roll their eyes and be like, oh, you know, she sucks. And so that was just like, I was just on edge for our 2 days of shooting, being like, okay, everyone knows I'm an idiot. And then if you try to overcompensate by being like, I do know what I'm doing, you go over there and you shoot this way and you do that, then you look like you're full of yourself. And women have that other layer of, you don't want to be a bitch on set or at your job. So it's like, well, I don't want to do that. So just trying to dance between when do I stand up for myself and when do I listen to the crew's opinion over, and when do I say, no, I hear your idea, but we're really going to do it my way. And it's this whole dance. And I remember working, on a few different projects, and I do remember it hit me one day, and I don't know if there's a weird way of saying it, but this is how it came to me. I was like, I'm kind of shitty. Like, I'm not good at this job, but I'm not shittier than any of the other people I see doing it. And I was just see a bunch of other directors that were kind of shitty. And I was like, you guys aren't good. We live in Halifax, for one. So it's like, I'm not competing with Steven Spielberg. I'm competing with local filmmakers. And I'm like, I'm not that good, but you're not that good. We're all just kind of making movies and trying, and most of them suck. Some of them are okay. Like, when I realized kind of the stakes were lower than that, I was like, that's what I still to this day tell myself on a regular basis. I'm like, yeah, Steph, you're kind of shitty at this, but you're not shittier than the next guy. So if that shitty guy can do it, I can do it. Like,
suck less. But you have to reach a point where you're like, I'm not shitty anymore.
no, I still think I'm shitty. I just think I'm
humble.
just as shitty.
Yeah, you're just...
I'm still shitty, Colleen. I'm just not shittier than the other filmmakers.
Well, that brings me to a question that I had about awards.
Yeah, there you go.
And the least shitty movie award goes to.
So how does that play into then you actually are not shitty because you're winning awards? Like, you are producing full feature films that are being recognized in a major way and winning awards and doing amazing things. So how does that play into that I'm still shitty narrative?
How shitty
I now that you think about what I just said on record, all those other filmmakers that like were in the same category with me would be like, man, she must think we're just terrible. Like, no, I swear that's not what I meant. I know that's how it came out. I don't thrive for exterior validation that much. We all like exterior validation. If I have a crush on someone and I find out he thinks I'm cute, I'm gonna feel good about that. But like, most of the time, I'm not looking around being like, do you guys like me? Do you guys like me? That's usually not how I live. And I think I'm kind of lucky that I wasn't raised in like competitive sports, or I didn't have a lot of things that were directly, like literally putting me up in competition with other people. So maybe that's why I don't really have that now as an adult. But I feel like it's a blessing because I've gone through my life not thinking about the award. Like, when I do create things, I don't think, okay, I gotta make something that the audience will like and that maybe will get me an award or someone will take me seriously if I do this way. When I make something, I'm like, what do I feel like making? Or what do I want to say? It's kind of cheesy, I guess, when filmmakers call themselves storytellers, but it's kind of true. You guys are like, no, it's not cheesy.
No.
Some people think it's cheesy. But it's like, okay, well, what story do I feel like saying? What can I say authentically? And then I'll start with an idea and then sort of write a script based on that. And then if people like it or don't, it's kind of irrelevant to me. It's relevant only because I want to keep making films. And I know that in order for me to keep making films, an award on my resume is going to help me get the next grant. I don't want to put down awards. Give me awards, people, if you're listening.
No, what I really like about that is the freedom in it, or the freedom from it, I guess.
Yeah, it does feel very freeing.
And I love that it's about creating for the sake of creating and doing what you want to do. And I kind of feel like that's how we feel about this podcast, because there's no mandate for us for it to do anything other than be something fun that we can work on and hopefully help other people feel better about their journeys with imposter syndrome and have fun doing it. There's like a huge freedom in that, not caring about what other people think of you, which is something I struggle with and probably will forever. So I admire that a lot.
Yeah, I think our fear of failure and sort of our need or want for external validation is sort of combined in that, like, in our caveman brain from forever ago, if you weren't accepted in a group, you were excommunicated, you die. Like, there's some layer of us somewhere in our brain to this day that goes, oh no, I don't want to be cast out of that group, because it's like life or death. But it's not anymore life or death. But there's some part of us that like instinctually feels that way. So I think that's where the emotion comes from. So I recognize that. Like if I fear rejection or failure, and I'm like, ooh, I didn't get this thing I wanted, that feels bad. Or, ooh, that person doesn't like me and that feels bad. I notice where it comes from. Oh, that comes from, like, I can't undo thousands of years of my ancestors existing and to want to fit in. And that's why the lineage has existed long enough for me to be here. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to outthink that. I'm not so smart that I'm going to unthink that. So that instinct is going to happen in my body. And then I go, oh, there it is again. And I notice, feel it. And then I go, oh, thank you, body, for trying to keep me alive. I don't need that now, though. I'll be fine without that. So then I just let the feeling exist in me, but I don't let the thought go to, I'm not good enough. So it's a process.
Wow. I feel like you should be hosting this podcast.
I was also listening
Therapy
to
session with Steph.
I love therapy.
Oh,
I love talking about emotions.
Yeah,
It's my
we are all
favorite thing to talk
therapy,
about.
We are all pro therapy.
Therapy junkies here.
Yeah.
One of the ways to combat imposter syndrome is to actually listen to how awesome the people in your life think you are. If you're looking for the perfect gift for a loved one, where you can tell them all of the things that make them special, visit my Drawbridge Creative Etsy shop and purchase a Things We Love About You custom poster. With several styles to choose from, it's a fabulous gift for any milestone birthday, anniversary, retirement, or just because. I still like the validation. Personally, it was so funny. It was only a couple of weeks ago. I was driving down the road with my daughter and I said, hey, did you see such and such? What did you think? What did you think about whatever I did? And she looked at me and she goes, does it matter what I think? And I was like,
good.
Yeah, kind of. And she goes, I said, I like validation. And she goes, you might want to talk to your therapist about that your next session.
How
and I
old
was
is
like,
she?
3. And I was like, are you kidding me that
She's smart.
this is, but afterwards I was like, yeah, she's a little ahead of me here.
Yeah.
On this.
I think we are all going to continue to feel the good and the bad that's connected to those things. I think where it gets dangerous is if you don't notice that you have that connection, you don't even explore why. Because like with me, I just feel like it's so much better to go, why does that feel bad? Why does that feel good? Oh, that's why. Okay. And yeah, and then just stop it in the process. Not even stop it because you want to feel the emotion, but just go like, oh, that emotion's there, noticing that, not going to let the thought process start that I'm good or not good based on this reaction.
Yeah, I like that.
So, also self-compassion. Can't beat yourself up for like not getting it right, because like we're not going to get it right. And so I'm Indigenous. My mother is Indigenous, so on my mother's side. And one place that I really still feel imposter syndrome probably the most is in the BIPOC world. So Black, Indigenous, people of color. There are a lot of spaces for BIPOC creators now in the last few years, and I think that is wonderful. I have struggled with identity in that way for most of my life. So like I said, my dad is French Acadian, he's white. My mother is Inuk from Labrador. I grew up very aware of both of those sides of my family, and some people have that story where like later in life they go, oh, it turns out I have Indigenous heritage, now I'm going to retrace my roots or whatever. That wasn't my story. Like I feel like I was raised with a lot of my Indigenous relatives, and that was a point of pride for us. But I thought that I looked like a Native person for a long time. And then it wasn't until I left Yarmouth and then kind of started making some new friends, and people, if it would come up in conversation, they'd be like, oh, you're Native, you don't look Native. And I'm like, oh, I don't. And then I had to like think about, oh, so now I'm walking around in the world as a white person when I thought I was walking around the world as a Native person. So then I felt different about that. I was like, okay, so now, and this was kind of before it was like trendy to be Native. That was before like there was a box to tick on anything. So that was just like an internal thing. And then I went to Labrador for a year and lived with my grandmother, and like all my friends were Native in Labrador, and I remember like feeling like I fit in, and I was like, okay, so like I am Native now, I'm hanging out with the Native people and they know I'm one of them, and now so that felt validating. And then in the last few years it's become more like when I apply for a grant, like there are specific streams or, funding dedicated to Indigenous stories or BIPOC stories. For a while, I was like, should I or should I not take up space in this area? One, yes, I am Native. I don't consider myself a person of color because I think I benefit from white privilege every day. So how much space do I want to take up, if any, in this world? So that has been an ongoing journey for me, and that is where I still feel the most imposter syndrome.
I'm Native enough.
I'm a Native enough. I don't know.
That's yucky.
I know. I didn't grow up on a reserve. I'm not status. I'm very clear about that when I talk about my experience, because I'm like, that's a different experience than a lot of Native people would have. But yeah, I can only see the world from my point of view. So like, I'm like, I think I can take up some space and give a perspective on some stories or in some rooms, but how much do I take on? I don't know.
And I think you've done an amazing job. Just a few of the projects that I'm aware of where you have amplified voices and told important stories, done a great job of that.
Thank you. My great grandmother on my mother's side, her name was Elizabeth Gowdy, and she wrote a book called Woman of Labrador. It's a published book.
I've read the book.
You have?
I've read the book.
Wait, are you from Newfoundland?
I'm from
Is that why
Newfoundland.
you're asking about it?
Well,
Okay.
yeah, that is, but I've read the book.
Now she just wrote down her life
Yeah.
to pass on to her children, the grandchildren,
The-
because she saw that like Labrador was changing, and they used to live off land and live a certain way, and then it was changing, and so she just wrote all this stuff down. Like, I want my way of living to just be known to my kids and grandkids. And then it got published. Like, someone approached her and said, why don't we publish that? And so she like accidentally became a published author. But this is a book. It's still, you can still buy it today, and I've optioned the rights to turn that into a movie.
Oh, wow.
So I don't
Is
know.
there a song?
There's also a song called Woman of Labrador based on the book. There's a play that toured Canada a few different times of the same name. Yeah.
That's exciting.
That's very cool.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, time for speed round. We're going to take out 5 questions and ask you 5 things.
I'm so excited.
And whatever comes to mind first, say it. All right, first question. What's your favorite body part?
On me, my lips, since I got my lips done, they look awesome.
What's your favorite age so far?
I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life, but I just turned 40 and I really don't like that I'm 40. But in my life, this is the healthiest and happiest I've ever been.
Nice. Favorite dessert?
Creme brulee.
What word do you have trouble pronouncing?
A couple. Those people that are on a jury?
Jurors.
Jurors.
That's the one.
Jurors.
Jurors. Also churro.
Interesting sound profile.
Jurors.
There's a sound you have.
Well,
issues.
hopefully
There
you
was
never have to deal with a jury and juror.
I have to go to churro to be on a jury.
Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
No, I don't like sandals ever. Yeah, it was
Well,
really
it
fun.
was lovely to meet you. You are
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
fascinating. You are
Yeah.
fascinating.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I love talking about myself. Just turning the mic on and here I go. I can't stop. I love it.
So good.
Thank you. It was
Well,
really
thank you for
fun.
joining us.
I think it's really cool that you guys are doing this podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. This was awesome.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Imposter Sisters. Please remember, we're not doctors or mental health experts. If you're looking for mental health guidance, please see our show notes for local resources. We'd like to thank our location sponsor, the Mellow Mug, located at 64 Delridge Lane, for donating this amazing space for us to have these important chats and for supplying us with drinks and goodies. Please give them a follow and make sure to stop in to see this beautiful spot for yourself. Until next time, keep your head high and we will see you next Tuesday. Are you looking to up your social media game? Social media can be intimidating and overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. At Everyday I'm Branding, we truly believe that every day is an opportunity to showcase your brand through authentic and aligned social media strategy and content. Whether you're looking for done-for-you social management or monthly strategy sessions, the team at Everyday I'm Branding can help you reach your ideal audience in a way that feels aligned and drives conversion. If you'd like to have the Imposter Sisters come into your business and help you and your team get comfortable creating social media content, ask us about our new Keen to Screen program, a value-packed social media training for anyone that is looking to up their social media presence either as a solopreneur or to empower their team to be impactful brand ambassadors.